So In the Shadow of Lightning, I actually canceled my pre-order.
Thank you to my patrons for supporting the channel and making it the best it can be.
Hey fantasy fans, welcome back. It's Dan here at TreeBeard Book Reviews, and I'm going to be doing a review today for In the Shadow of Lightning by Brian Mclellan. It is his new series that he's written. He is well known for the Powder Mage series. He's written 6 books in that series. I actually haven't read Powder Mage. It's something I want to plan to eventually get to. I don't know, after reading this book, if it might kind of maybe put that a little bit on hold. But I just want to say, if you guys are new to the channel, please, welcome. And for those who are, subscribed, welcome back. I thought it'd be good to get a review for this because I got the audiobook version of In the Shadow of Lightning from Netgalley. And it was actually narrated by Damian Lynch. So Damian Lynch is well known for, like The Faithful and the Fallen by John Gwynne. So there's no knocking on his audio performance. He had a great audio performance. And I think the audio performance actually maybe bumped it up more than it really should have been, because other than that, the story is a little weak. So we're going to kind of break it down, spoiler free, talk about the book, what I didn't like, is there anything that is there that I did like, and who would I recommend this kind of story to. So let's get into it. So as I said, In the Shadow of Lightning, it's Brian Mclellan's new story. It's set in the land of Ossa, and there's also a neighboring country called Gwent. And so you first meet the main character, Demir Grappo. He's a young guy. I think he's like 18 or 19, maybe even 20. In the prologue, he is high on the high horse. He's a governor. He's like a general. He's, the Lightning Prince. And something happens to him in his first campaign that, pretty much caused him to go into exile. And it's actually a really compelling prologue. The prologue is probably the best part of this story. You get introduced to the 2 magic systems. I'm not going to name them just because one of them gets named later and you don't really understand it till much later. So there's 2 magic systems going on. They're both related to glass. So that's all I will really say. And then, after the prologue, it flash forwards 9 years. This is all in the back of the book, so there's no spoilers. Demir's mother is brutally murdered. She's a well-known politician, and Demir has to come back out of exile and solve her murder and get to the bottom of, what's happening in Ossa and Gwent. So, and the murder of his mother, does lead to tensions and a war between Gwent and Ossa. Gwent is, like I said, a neighboring country. So, where did this book kind of go wrong for me? First of all, I thought it was too long. The story was just a little too long. When I was listening to the audiobook, I always just was kind of waiting for it to end or waiting for something interesting to happen. And it's really sad because the prologue hooked me really hard. It had a really strong prologue where you're like, ooh, this is kind of cool. Two magic systems that are kind of, that play into each other. And you want to see this character, who was riding high and, had a fall. And it just never gets more interesting than the prologue, which is kind of shitty to say. Like, the prologue was the high point, and then from then it just kind of meanders on till the end. And it's a shame it never really hit another high point, because you're kind of waiting for it all the time in the book. I was waiting and waiting and waiting for it just to hit this another peak, and it sadly never did. So, and I kind of want to, I speculate why. And I think it's mainly because of the character work. So there's 4 main POVs kind of going on in this. You have Demir, who's the main character, and then 3 other characters, 2 female and another male character. So it's 2 and 2 male, 2 female POV characters. And I only ever really cared about 2 of them, one of them being Demir and then one of them being another character. And the other 2, I just couldn't care less about. And like, there's this one of the POVs is, she's, I guess she's like a spy, or she's like an enforcer, and she's, looking into the murder of Demir's mother, Adriana. It was never really interesting. It was just really, kind of super cliche. It was so predictable. You knew what was going to happen, and it just never got interesting. And I think a part of that too is also because of the magic. The magic sounds cool, but it's really not interesting. It's he does a really weird thing with the magic here, where it sounds like a great idea. It's almost like a very Mistborn type of magic with the allomancy and the god glass. but it's just not interesting. There's no kind of real limitations on the magic. Everyone can kind of use the magic to a certain point if they're possessing like the type of god glass. But it's just, it was never super interesting. I'm never like, oh, this is cool. And, you know, it just never does anything super cool with the magic, which is one of the things that was really just annoying. Like, you had two magic systems, and one was like a passive magic system, and then one was active, but you never really learned about the active one. And when you do, it doesn't work in a sense in my mind. I don't want to get into any spoilers about the magic system, but I just really didn't enjoy the magic in this book. Like, you know, if you're going to have a magic system, you know, do cool things with it. And it never just tipped over the scale of cool. Like, it just had this like mediocrity to it that it was just super disappointing. So like I said, it had like these 4 POVs that I couldn't really care less about. The stories just seemed really long. It had a very cliched plot, very predictable plot. And I said, I just never got interested in any of the characters. And then the magic again was just boring. Like, and you know, it's funny because he's a student of Brandon Sanderson, and Brandon Sanderson does have a rule: if you're going to do something cool and do it with magic. And it's like Brian Mclellan forgot this rule. And I haven't read Powder Mage, and I don't really know how the Powder Mage system, like magic system, works, but I'm hoping it's cooler than this one, because this one just was boring. It was honestly boring. I was just like, I never cared about the magic, and I never thought like, ooh, like, because you know when you read magic systems, you're like, I'd love to do that magic. And in this one, you're just like, no, I don't want to do it. It's dumb. It felt dumb, and which is it's just disappointing to say, because this is one of the most anticipated books of the year. I was really looking forward to reading it, and like I said, I got the audio, and it just, maybe I had too high of an expectation and just never lived up to that expectation. And I actually think my rating would be a lot, you know, lower if I didn't do the audio, because I you know, it's narrated by Damian Lynch. He does a fantastic job narrating the voices. He does really distinct accents for certain characters. So based on his voice, you know which character is talking. So Damian Lynch's performance is great as always. No knocks there. It's just, you know, I wish Damian had a better source material to work from. So yeah, and then I guess as the story kind of goes on, like, you know, there's these two plots. So you're dealing with like this murder mystery, this murder plot, this investigation, and then this like war plot, and neither just ever spark your interest. And like I said, it's about 30% to like about 80% in the book, like that middle 50% where it's just like, it's boring. It's really boring. And I was just like, oh, you know, like, come on, man. Like, I actually turned the speed up to like 2, like to, you know, 2.0 speed, because I had to get through it. I was kind of just sick of it, to be honest. I was sick of listening to it. And then in the last 80%, you know, Brian McClellan's like, oh, I really kind of start to need to tie this into a second book, because, you know, the way the story was going, the plot was going, there wasn't really a foundation laid early for a second book. So he starts bringing that stuff in the last 20%. And it's okay, but again, it's like, it's almost too little too late by that point, because you've already lost your audience. I just felt like, I don't care. I just want to get to the end. Don't care about any of these characters. They could have lived, they could have died. Fine. It's fine. I'm over it. And then, yeah, he introduces these characters that are, you know, kind of eldritch, I guess. They're like, and they're going to be what's going to be carrying on into the second book. And unless Brian can really turn it around with the magic system, like, I'm still interested enough, I guess, to give the second book a read. But if it doesn't really pick up in terms of the magic, or make the magic cooler, or explain the magic a little bit more, I'm done. I'm done with this series. So yeah, this is a real disappointing read, actually, or I guess listen when I did it. I wouldn't really highly recommend it, to be honest. Like, I did have it pre-ordered, and like the book comes out today, on the day of this review. I canceled it. I'm not interested in owning it, to be honest. And I have the Powder Mage series, and I do want to read those, but this has really kind of not got me excited for that anymore. There's so much opportunity that was missed in this book. And, you know, it just read like a bad debut author. It's just really, you know, Brian McClellan in his career now shouldn't be writing this type of a book. he should have the experience to, you know, write compelling characters, especially 4 POV characters. And I couldn't really care too much about one of them. Like 2 of them, I was just like, "Ugh, so boring. Like, I'm done with these characters. Don't want to read them. They don't interest me at all." So yeah, guys, this isn't really Within the Shadow of Lightning. It was just disappointing. It was really disappointing, and I you know, I love fantasy, and this one just didn't hit it. Just, you know, and that's fine. Sometimes books just miss, and maybe I'm the wrong audience for it. I think some people are definitely gonna like it if this is probably their first experience with magic and magic systems. But I don't necessarily see it having good sticking power, and unless you can really, you know, boost the series in the subsequent books, it's going to be tough selling. I just think this is one of those that's going to be mediocre, never really gets much mention. So if I was to rate this, it would be a D tier. It would be a donate. Like I said, I have no interest in owning it now. I'm kind of glad I got the Netgalley, and I gave it a 3 on Goodreads, and that was really generous, to be honest. Now I think that was just because of the Damian Lynch audiobook. So I'm actually kind of glad I got it on audiobook now, because if I got the ebook edition from Netgalley, I would have rated it even worse. So yeah, guys, it's someone's gonna like it. I wouldn't, because it's not for me. I wouldn't recommend purchasing it, to be honest. I'm glad I listened to it and experienced it and read it. But, you know, different strokes for different folks, and it's another fantasy story. It's just a shame. I think it's one of those things where, you know, I hyped the book up in my head. I got really excited. I loved the premise of the book, and it just sadly never delivered. And as I said, you know, the prologue was great, and it just never got better from there. So that's it, guys. That's my review of In the Shadow of Lightning. It just did come out today, so I know some people are going to be checking this review out to whether they should go and buy it. For me, it's a not a buy. So anyways, guys, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you guys watching the channel, and as always, we'll see you next time. Cheers.